I don't see that anyone else has tried to join. Oh, there he is.
Hello, Brian. Hi, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Terry will not be able to join us tonight. If we can just wait a minute or so, and I had hoped Holly would be here because I have questions that I needed to ask of her. But we might as well call the meeting to order, and if others join, they can join. This is the 5 p.m. labeled special meeting because the standard time had to be different because of the council meeting at 6. So we're meeting at 5 instead of our previously posted time. That's the label for a special meeting. And present are myself and Mr. Coleman. First item of business, is there any public comment? Any member of the public? Nobody
No.
has indicated. First item is the approval of the minutes of March 28th, 2022.
So moved.
Second? No comments, all in favor? Aye. Okay. The next is something we've talked about repeatedly, and I did want to get a clear understanding of how this now proceeds. This is the Personnel Committee charge and the change of the name to the Personnel and Procedures Committee. And we've been through this a few times. You see in your minutes from the previous meeting, the charge as it was finally laid out after discussion with Mr. Deneen and with the town manager. One small typo, which I think probably was my typo, under recruitment of professional assistants, conduct processes for and advise the council on recruitment and retention of specific contractual services. Now, what is the process by which this now goes through? If we approve this tonight, do we send this to the council for it to go on the council agenda for its approval at the next meeting, which is May 9th? That's the other council committees haven't been through this similar process. So this is kind of breaking new ground. But if the wording here is, as we've finally gone through it, all right, then I would move to approve this and forward it to the full council for their review and consideration and hopefully approval.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so second, all in favor? Myself, Mr. Coleman. Now, the next item is again something we talked about previously, the Personnel Appeals Board. And what I wanted to, and maybe because what I wanted to ask, Holly, perhaps you had done this table.
Mhm.
Where does this language come from?
Holly pulled that table together, so I'm not.
When you say the
Sure.
language.
Yeah,
what's
is this from the town charter, from past resolution, under summary overview?
So I think, don't know this for sure, but I believe that this would just be Holly's attempt at distilling or summarizing from the enabling legislation that, specifies how,
That
at
the
the state
enabling,
level, how personnel appeals boards, so it's
Okay.
just sort of synopsizing what the.
okay. So this is from state legislation.
Right.
We, the town council, simply followed that and did not have our own resolution.
Right, so there may, I guess, to the extent, because it's a local option
Yeah,
to create, you don't have to create, so.
right.
When it came time to create, I haven't seen, the motions that were made. It
Yeah.
probably though would have, I don't think it allows for like customization or deviating from. I would hazard a guess that it was probably something of, to establish pursuant to CGS, et cetera, a personnel.
Maybe, maybe the mayor can help us. We're talking about the Personnel Appeals Board that we
Yes.
talked about last time. Holly's not able to be with us tonight, but she'd put together a table
Yeah.
that talks about the appeals board with a summary overview. And I was wondering where she got this from, and Ryan suggests probably from state legislation, but then as perhaps modified by some town resolution.
It's in the policy manuals for the personnel policy manuals.
So it had previously been approved by the town.
It's been in place since,
been in place.
at least since the civil service was
Sure.
created.
Yeah, and so were we to make any change in this, not that I'm recommending that, it would go via the council. It could not deviate from the state prescription. But is there?
Well, because of it doesn't say in here that it's in accordance with state law.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is just this document. So Holly created this, but I mean, there is, Connecticut general statute that outlines if you establish a personnel appeals board, this is how many people, this is how they're appointed. Like it's very,
okay, it's
it's
very
not
specific.
right. It's not like I was saying before you walked in. It does not provide a lot of like local customization options. It's
Right. So it must be part of the state's authorization to municipalities to have civil service.
Right. Basically, it says, you can have a personnel appeals board, and if you do, this
Is how it goes.
now the early discussion a couple of years ago of maybe assigning these functions to our Board of Ethics would have created issues.
Oh, yeah.
And so it did not go to fruition.
Well, it's totally inappropriate.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. So the question now is, what are we to do? We have this that has been created, that has existed for many years. The members are either dead or gone, many of them.
Well, I think there's still one left anyway.
Yeah, there's one who's been on since 1978 and one who's been on since 1972.
all of which though have expired terms.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Nobody's really active.
but one who was appointed Lee Terry in 2020, so still,
I think she may have been reappointed at that point.
okay,
She's been on it forever.
okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, this, I think that's an end date 2015, so I thought they were all expired. But okay.
So the question is, what do we do? I mean, there is a need for such a board should a grievance arise.
Right.
And I think we agree, or most of us agreed last time, that it wouldn't be something we want to wait until there's a grievance and then we appoint the board.
Generally speaking, no.
Yeah.
I would send it to committee on committees and ask them to find people
Yeah,
with the understanding that it's highly unlikely that they'll be called upon to work.
now you appoint two of the members. That would not go to the committee on committees.
Right, committee committees would decide or
So
make
the three-
recommendations for the three.
three that are appointed.
Unless, on some occasions, Matt had said to the committee on committees, help me find people.
Well, sure, I mean, I would be open to the help. I mean, I'm just,
Yeah.
I guess I wouldn't say
Okay.
like I am,
Yeah,
tying my hands to whatever, but yeah, I mean, as a means of convenience.
Yes.
Happy to
Okay.
say,
Yeah, and also because you probably don't know as many people in the community as others do.
so should there be a motion from this body to send this to the committee on committees, or can we do that informally?
I would just point out to Sarah Ann, who chairs it, that this committee needs to be reappointed
Okay,
or appointed or something, and have her put it on their agenda.
okay. Can you take that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The language of the charge, should that go to the council before we go to committee to committees?
No reason. I mean, it's an established committee. It's required by law. And all we need to do is keep the membership updated.
The one question I would have is, in this language here, it says to hear and decide any grievance of any employee, but we have said unionized employees are not covered by this.
Their collective bargaining
Should-
agreement takes them out of this
Right.
process.
Should it therefore, should the language somewhere say any non-unionized employee or any employee for whom the collective bargaining is not.
What does the ordinance say?
Yeah, so I mean, it does, I'm pretty sure the law says that. Holly summary didn't specifically state as much.
Mhm.
What does our ordinance or our policy on this board
I mean,
say?
our policy, I'm sure does include language that says not.
Should we run it by the town attorney?
I don't think it's necessary. We just need to get some new people. And there's no reason to have it go through the council because all you're doing is asking to have it repopulated.
Just the question about the language indicating non-union or,
I would say this is a summary overview and it's not a legal statement.
Yeah, I mean, this table, I think literally, Holly just created once.
the table may be, not
It's like a
the
discussion
significant
guide.
document, but whatever the significant document is that she took it from, should we make sure that that says this is the process for non-unionized employees?
And I've read it in there, and it must be.
Not entirely, because there's some things that aren't in collective bargaining agreements that are in our personnel policies, like sexual harassment. So a union, I mean, I think that's part of it. I'm not positive, but there might be something that falls out, that is in town policies, that falls outside the collective bargaining agreement that it would be considered appropriate. Right.
I regret this, but I think it's probably important for us to see the full language,
Okay.
because this summary is in that case misleading, implying that it's only if the discharge or suspension was arbitrary or capricious or constituted discrimination. And that's what the summary says.
I
I agree with Ron on that.
Here we go. Section C 603. All right. The council shall establish a personnel appeals board as set forth in Connecticut general statutes.
So 7-422.
Section 7-422.
Yeah.
All right, and that's all it says
In our.
in our description of the board.
Interesting.
I mean, I can't. I'm going to see if there's another page. All right. 603. Let's go back to the code. Section. Personnel Appeals Board. Oh, wait a minute. Is established. The purpose of the
Yeah.
board is to hear and decide any grievance of any employee of the town of Mansfield which has not been resolved by the town manager or which has not been resolved at lower levels of the grievance procedure established in the town's personnel rules and which is properly filed in accordance with the board's rules of procedure.
And then it says employee, any person defined as a classified employee.
Who is not-
represented for the purposes of collective bargaining by an
Right.
employee organization of the provision of the Municipal Employee Relations Act.
Okay, so it's already in there.
Okay, so we're, okay.
And then it's
Could you reread that, Tony, please?
The definition of an employee is any person defined as a classified employee under section C 602 of the Charter of the Town of Mansfield, who is not represented for the purposes of collective bargaining by an employee organization under the provision of the Municipal Employee Relations Act.
Okay, now what if the town manager is the one that's actually filing a grievance?
Well, he would go to the Personnel Appeals Board. Actually, I think there's a different. I think we wrote that the council appealed. I don't remember exactly how that works. That's,
in the employment agreement, I think if there's, it spells out, I don't have the document in front of me, but it spells out
Yeah.
what an appeal process looks like.
yes, I think it does.
And then to your point, Ron, the language she used, it does say here, grievance, an employee claim that his or her discharge or suspension was arbitrary or capricious or constituted discrimination, which was prohibited by law, that he or she has been discriminated against in violation of law, or that there has been a misinterpretation or misapplication of the town's personnel rules.
Hmm.
So that is defined.
Okay.
And then it says in 63-7, nothing in this chapter shall abrogate the right of municipal employees to bargain collectively. And a decision of the board can be appealed to the Superior Court.
I don't see any harm in actually sending this to the council for a review. I mean, if everybody takes a look at the language and collectively, people come up with some ideas, we got a lot of smart people on the council that might be able to suggest something.
What's the point?
The point is involving everybody in the process. That's the point.
But it's a board for which there has been no use within memorable history. And that
Yeah.
history goes
That
back.
can change at any moment, Tony.
No,
No.
it could. I mean,
But it's-
why bother at all if we just say, oh, it's never been used?
But it's set up in accordance with our ordinance,
Yeah.
in accordance with state law.
I think the only thing that's missing now is membership. The way I read it, it spelled out what it's to do, the membership, you know, the 3-2 split. The only
Yeah.
thing we don't have, if it's the council's goal to make the practice be that we have a comprised personnel appeals board and not wait for an issue to
Yeah.
come about, would be to,
To get people on it.
Because-
and then it's there lying in wait when you need it.
It has already been established. It's been established in accordance with state law, and it's been established by the town council already.
In ordinance.
If there was a wish by any member of the council to review this, then they could move to do so. And if that were passed by the relevant body, then that could happen. I would not support such a motion, but there it is.
Yeah. Look, one of the things that I have been trying very hard to do is to keep our council meetings on point, having significant discussions, but not going on to all hours of the night. And I don't think there's any point in debating something about which there is no issue.
There is a personnel committee, us, and that is the committee that deals with something like this, at least in its task to review what was in the rules of procedure and so forth. And so here we are. And I would simply support just asking Sarah Ann, the town clerk, to work in her appropriate way to see that the Committee on Committees does its appropriate thing in recommending to you or in recommending to the council people to be appointed to this committee.
It's the Personnel Committee to make recommendations to the council. That's why I would like, since we discussed this, the Personnel Committee should pass it along to the council.
Doesn't have to. It's an option.
Right. You
Wonderful option.
motion, it won't, it won't be seconded, but you can make the motion, Brian.
How do you know it's not going to be seconded? You're making decisions for everybody else, Brian.
It's only me here on the committee.
I was speaking on the council. Sorry.
Well, anything can be brought up in the council by any member of the council, even bypassing a committee.
Well, if you move to have it put on the agenda, we can decide whether or not we want to put it on the agenda.
Okay.
It's just to be on the safe side. I mean, it would only be a 5-minute item on the agenda. We're not talking a lengthy discussion on anything. It's not going to take much time.
You can make the motion. So if we can move on, the next item, I just want to discuss in a very preliminary way. You know, that thing that I sent you, if you can put, thinking about the town manager evaluation. which to my great fear was talked about doing right at this
Green
point.
button.
Can you screen share or?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I took my glasses off.
Oh.
Okay, so
Okay.
this is just me thinking, my thoughts of how a calendar for the evaluation might work out. This is, written on a word processor, can be easily changed. But one thing I wanted, you and I, Ryan, oh, hi, we have discussed, instead of the normal anniversary date, which would be November, the problem with the November evaluation is that there would be a new council, many of whose members not have been familiar with you. Would you, and you don't have to answer right now, be amenable to having that happen in October rather than November? Even though November is the standard anniversary date.
Keeping the body of the council the same through the evaluation period makes sense to me, Ron.
I'm not sure I follow, keeping it in,
So
Yeah,
the-
well, your suggestion makes sense, because
Right.
the council body will be the same that the town manager was under. What you're saying makes sense, is you might get a big change in November or something like that, but, so I agree.
so that's really,
So that, from a process standpoint, that seems to
Okay.
make sense.
so with that, again, just my thoughts about how such a thing might proceed. Developing a survey instrument in June, where I have taken my hand at a survey instrument. Others can do that as well, looking at some models that appear elsewhere. The instrument would be reviewed with the town manager in July. The instrument will be put in final form for SurveyMonkey or some other way of submitting it to the council, done by the middle of August. And that would be something that I would look to Holly or some other staff member to do. The town council would be asked to complete the survey and submit via the instrument, SurveyMonkey or whatever, to the town council by September 8th. The personnel committee would review and tabulate the responses during the month of September. The town council would meet in executive session to discuss the performance review in the absence of the town manager. The personnel chair and the mayor would meet with the town manager to discuss the survey results toward the end of September. The council would meet with the town manager in executive session to discuss the performance review at the end of September. And then the town council would vote to adopt the performance review and make any change in compensation, if any.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
There's one piece that I think you might include,
Mhm.
and that is the manager completes a self-evaluation and submits it to the council prior to the council filling out the forms.
Okay. Would that be prior to or
Prior to
concurrent
works
with
nicely.
the development of our instrument?
No, it's after you've developed your
Okay.
instrument, because what we've done in the
Yeah,
past is have them do the same instrument
Okay.
just for ease of
Mhm.
calculation.
Okay,
And, but it's also helpful for us to have that self-evaluation in front of us as we evaluate.
It
okay.
also gives the town manager an opportunity to highlight things that we should be thinking
Yes.
about.
So that would take place during June, July.
No, it would have to be after August 15th.
Okay,
Yeah,
Oh,
when-
okay.
when the instrument's finalized.
okay,
So yeah, it would be
Like a
between
week
the
ahead of-
15th
Yeah.
and September 8th, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And what we've
Right
done
when you're
before
having
is
your
we've given that-
vacation. What a lovely way to spend the last week of August.
In the
Um,
past, we've made that available, we've given that to the town councilors, so.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
helpful for
Mhm.
guiding their assessments.
And it always helps because you always forget things that have happened 8 months ago.
Yeah,
Make it such, give Ryan the opportunity to sort of highlight his successes.
so the task for us, if this is generally acceptable, our task as a committee is to develop the survey instrument for which I would like to request any council member and also our HR person and others who have expertise make suggestions.
Let me ask you a question. What is the purpose of moving away from the survey instrument that we have used in the past?
I just, as it occurs to me, questions like how the person dealt with ARPA. Things that might be specific to the past.
To the past
Yeah.
year.
Yeah,
Okay. I mean, those could always be added to an existing instrument when you say
Yeah.
you're looking at other models.
yeah,
That
Well,
involves all kinds of questions like how do you answer?
yeah.
What kind of a scale do you have? Do you have 1 to 5? Do you have 1 to 3? Do you have?
Yeah,
So I'll just offer,
Yeah.
to the extent you're looking for feedback from me, I thought that the process we went through last year when it came to the preparation of the questions, there was back and forth, multiple sets of eyes. So I think, keeping those or some semblance of those is sort of like, these are the sort of general recurring, they're not, like you said, they're not tied
Yeah.
to specific things that change year to year. And then you could have some number of like, whether it's rescue
Specifics.
plan or something that are kind of like the issues of the day, sort of, just that way it doesn't have to be the whole wheel, I guess, doesn't get reinvented every evaluation cycle. There's some level of consistency.
Right.
In November 2018, there was an evaluation that was done of Derek, right?
Yep.
And there were standard questions. The problem was not with the instrument. There were other problems there, but not,
That's right.
and there were some general questions, build relationship with the mayor and council and so forth. And then developing a short and long-term plan for economic development, including the Four Corners Sewer Project. So there was that mix of the specific and the general.
So as
This is from 2018. This is a draft. It was probably,
Oh,
it's somewhere in my file.
If you need the electronic version of that, I can get that to you.
Yeah,
I don't think that we can say in the absence of the town manager. I think that if we're having a meeting about somebody, they have a right to be there.
right.
But I think what we said to Ryan the last time was, it's easier if you're not there,
Yeah,
but you have a right to be there.
Well, I think the
you
way it works, well, first of all, I'm not gonna, if you guys want to go into executive session to talk, I'm not gonna like insist on that, but I think the way the law works is not that I have the right to insist to be in the executive session, it's that I can request that it be done in public.
public, yes.
Right.
Right.
And by virtue then be there.
Yeah.
But-
mhm.
the function of this executive session is really for the council to hear how the thing came out.
Right.
And if there were any particular problems that we need to discuss, either with the form, the way it was handled. One of the real questions in the past has been, only 7 people filled it out. How do we deal with this?
Yeah,
And one was a Democrat, and one was a Republican, so I didn't know whether it was a wash or not, but so that, it's basically to present to the council how the survey came out. It isn't a real discussion of the evaluation. We hand out the results, people have a chance to read them and ask some questions, and then we come back at the next meeting, we agree in private what we're going to say, and then we invite the town manager in and present the things to him.
prior to that, it's been the mayor and the personnel chair meeting with the town manager.
Generally speaking, it's at some point, and I know it's specified in the process somewhere, and I can never get it straight. I never can figure out whether we have to meet with the town manager before the council formalizes it or after the council formalizes it.
Now, concurrent with all of this is the compensation issue, which depends not exclusively on the evaluation, but on the budget, on
Yeah.
many elements. And how has that been?
It's usually been done after the evaluation is
Yeah.
completed, et cetera, and that's
Yeah.
a separate discussion.
Mhm.
how do we get the instrument out to more people? Anybody have any ideas how to get out, to survey out to more citizens?
No, this is our employee, and this is the council's evaluation of our employee. We have never asked anybody on the outside to contribute, except in the 360, when we have asked his direct reports to answer a different set of questions which relate to the information and knowledge they have, but we don't.
And that's done customarily every 5 years?
Well, we were
3,
doing it every 3, but
3.
ICMA requires it every 5. But for our purposes, sooner is a little better than later. I mean,
Yeah.
5 years in town government's a pretty long time.
But we did it just this last year, so it would not be within even the 3 years.
That's right.
Well, this is just for discussion here now.
I was just gonna say, just one thing, I don't know what happened and when it might have happened with Derek, but one thing just to, kind of think about, certainly this is something I would do with any employee that I evaluate is when it comes to, the specific goal piece, obviously if you're gonna be measured against a goal, you need to know for that performance period what the goal is. You don't say like the day before, like, let's see how you did on this goal that we established yesterday.
With this one, with Derek, I used his contract.
Right.
So if it's spelled out somewhere,
Right,
then it's.
But I don't know what your contract looks like, so, but that's where the information came
I
from.
mean, I think there's a way to accomplish
Yeah.
that, get at the sort of, again, the more current event stuff. But I just think that if that's a sort of an aim or direction the council wants to go, it's just important then when, the current year's evaluation is completed, then when you're sort of looking ahead to what the next one will look like, that's when you would maybe formalize. So for next year, these are your goals.
There is I don't remember the 2018 one, but there used to, in the old one, there was a section of what are your goals for the next year.
We did give Brian goals when we finished our last
Okay, right.
evaluation of him.
So it's one of those things we might want to add.
Yeah, in all fairness, it seems like whatever measures, if you're gonna have goals, then they have to be goals that Ryan had some ability to know
That's
that
right.
they were goals. I mean, some of them are gonna be pretty obvious, like preparing the budget, dealing with ARPA. I mean, I think some of those you can fairly say are implicit.
So would that be our recommendation, the Personnel Committee's recommendation, or
Well,
would it be your?
What we've done in the past is we've asked in the self-evaluation,
Yeah.
what are your goals for the
Okay.
next year?
Um,
And we've also asked in the council's evaluation, what goals would you set? And then we put the two goals together, sets of goals together, weighing the importance of one against another. We don't give him 15 goals. Or 20, depending on how many, but
Where every aspect of a job doesn't need to have its own goal statement. I
Yeah.
mean, there's like the stuff you do on a day-to-day basis. It's kind of more like this,
Yeah.
the special stuff.
yeah, that was one of the debates we've had. Are we evaluating whether or setting goals for preparing a budget, which is,
The core aspect of the job.
Yes.
Mhm.
or preparing a budget that cuts taxes, that's a very different kind of a
Right.
goal.
Now, when's the goal writing process start for Ryan? When does the goal process start?
I would think.
Well, that's why the council members in their evaluation set goals.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if somebody said to cut budget, I would argue as hard as I could that was not an appropriate goal.
Mhm.
Because we don't know what the finances are going to be in the next year.
So Brian was asking the timing of it. So I would say, typically what I would do, and this is what I've seen done with, pretty much across the board is when you complete your self-evaluation, the employee, then the sort of last piece of the self-evaluation is what would you propose for goals for the next performance period? And then when individuals evaluate me, same thing, you evaluate based on the last 12 months, and then there's the looking ahead, what would you propose as goals? And so then once the sort of sit down and you review how it all shook out, that's where there would be discussion and hopefully mutual agreement on what the next year's goals would be. So it's all kind of concurrent and overlapping.
Yes.
That would be in August.
Well, right.
So
so-
in the survey instrument, will the people be able to review your goals and judge it by the performance of your goals?
Absolutely. All
Yeah.
of these documents are in every council member's hands.
No, I mean the town employees.
The town employees, I didn't understand your question, Brian.
The town employees use the survey instrument, correct?
They use a different survey instrument.
When we do a
Does it-
360 evaluation, not in this process.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay,
Because,
so
I mean, the
I
reason-
thought the last evaluation was kind of vague for the town employees. It seemed as though, if I remember, it probably could have used a little work.
Well, you can work on that when it's time to
Yeah.
do the 360.
Yeah,
But I think if part of what Brian is asking, and maybe he's not, but part of what he's asking is just as a general awareness, would the goals, the mutually agreed to goals be available? I wouldn't have any, issue with that, we could, obviously the results of the evaluation, that maybe that's not so much something you publicly share, but the goals for next year, like if it's, these
Yeah.
5 or 6 things, there's no reason why that would be a secret.
For a couple of years, we were using the goals set out in Mansfield Tomorrow as goals. But we've gotten pretty far away from those, and things have
Well, and there's
really
some things that are
changed.
sort of outside, I mean, you try to find, I think, the right balance. Some things you might want goals that are specifically done in collaboration with others, because that's the point, but obviously, like any, you want to be able to be evaluated on some sort of things which were within your sphere of influence.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having that be one of the questions for next year, like at this evaluation stage, letting Ryan say what he thinks his goals should be and the town councilors, and then when we all meet, we'll have his, and then we could come up with 5 or 3. I don't think it should be too many, obviously.
Yeah.
But I like that process going forward. We don't have that luxury now to say that we set goals for you before, but we should set goals.
Well, I think the main goal was be better than
Which-
don't get us into
That
another.
was the first,
mess.
I thought that was the goal for the first evaluation, but I guess in terms of setting goals for now, what'll be the second evaluation.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
where maybe
this
there
will-
could
yeah.
goals should also include new ideas.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And if there's something a person thinks they ought to be improving on, it shouldn't, but those should be in there too.
Professional development.
Yeah.
So I'll play around with this. I'll look at your notes from our discussion and kind of do a revised one, which I maybe can send out to the Personnel Committee and discuss generally with the council where we're at in terms of this and looking at some tasks over the summer, knowing that some people are away at some points during the summer, so we have to coordinate with all. The Community Assistance Coordinator, initially that was not put on the council agenda, but was put on our agenda because there was a desire to hire somebody real quick. Where are we with that?
Well, yeah, we haven't taken, we are ready to, move forward with the selection process as soon as it's approved by the full council. So we
Okay.
obviously didn't want to get out in front of our skis here. This is a union, or would be a union position, so there's a process by which the posting has to be made available internally, to union employees first. So that would sort of kick off immediately after tonight.
The reason it comes to us as a council committee is because it wasn't in the, you hire people without it all being
Yeah,
specific.
this is just a creation of a new position.
New
That's
position.
why it's here.
And could not just wait for the approval of the budget.
Well, the
Because we
goal
wanna
was to
get-
try to get a little bit of a head start.
Okay.
Basically, we're trying to have somebody in place, depending on whether it's internal or external. If it's
Yeah.
external, it takes a little bit more time, but if it's internal, we could have somebody in place during the month of May
Okay.
and just try to accelerate some of the work.
So is it on the
yeah,
agenda?
so we already voted on this issue already.
Yeah, so it's before personnel now, as opposed to just full council tonight, specifically because the earlier, 99% of what you already saw is what this is. The reason why I felt that substantive enough to bring back is we had the discussion, some of which played out in council meetings. I let the council know that, after more internal huddling, discussion, deliberation, I thought it made more sense to put this position in human services than planning and development. And so for that reason alone, that's why it's back before you, because technically you guys embraced something that was in a different department. And then secondarily, again, doing a review of comparable positions, this was originally proposed as a grade 15, and without getting too in the weeds, I mean, that just was deemed to be a bit too light based on the substance of the position. We have other grade 17s that are comparable in nature, including the early childhood development coordinator, and then this was more appropriate.
So if we approve this here, goes on the council agenda for the next council.
on the
meeting?
council
It's
It's on the agenda for
tonight.
tonight? Okay, so, okay.
And because you guys already saw it, I mean, I
Yeah.
know we technically usually do like personnel and then
Yeah.
the next, but you guys had already
Okay.
acted on it. So it's just sort of
Okay,
looking for a reaffirmation of your previous support, I guess.
so I would entertain a motion to approve this of the committee.
I move effective April 25th, 2022, to endorse hiring a full-time community assistance coordinator in the Human Services Department, starting on June 1st, 2022, 1 month in advance.
Is there a second? I'll second. Discussion? No discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unopposed. Okay. With that, is there any other business before us? Okay, then a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
second? All in favor? Aye.
I appreciate having a
Okay.
handful of minutes before the next one.
Yeah, thank you. We have some pizza.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
some pizza and
enjoy.
Thank
salad.
you.
If there's a slice left, maybe
Yeah.
I'll grab it. You guys enjoy it.
Oh, there's plenty left.
But there's more.